feature highlight number 5 in City Skylines 2, City Services. Let's go. Let's read it together, figure out what's going on in this new game. I got my coffee, and let's get into it. So in the very beginning of this blog post, if you haven't read any blog posts before, they just kind of detail like what you're going to be reading about in the very beginning. So, you know, they're like, your task is to provide citizens with various blah, 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 blah. Nothing crazy important in these few paragraphs right here, and it kind of moves on afterwards. It does explain that like not all citizens have the same needs. Senior citizens will have more time and value, places where they can spend that time, and then families with children, on the other hand, will value areas with schools. Working age citizens seek resident in areas that have quick connections to workplaces. That's really cool. So you'll need to have housing in a multitude of different areas. You'll need to have housing in schools, near parks, near all these different places. That's kind of fun. Oh, and you can see your citizens' happiness as well, and companies also. So businesses, commercial zones, and I imagine industrial zones also have a happiness score, which is interesting. So maybe like office parks are going to be a little bit more important in this game than in the first one. In the first one, they were just kind of there for fun. Now, maybe it's a little bit more important. Okay, so let's get into these service types. Okay, so again, it says water pipes are pre-built under the roads. The condition of roads decreases over time. The worse the road conditions, the higher chance of traffic accidents. You need a road maintenance depot. That's good. That's good. Because in the first game, you put the road maintenance depot and then the roads start to degrade. Like if you don't put the depot on, then you're good to go. All right, then we go into electricity. Okay, so this is just saying kind of what, if you've seen the video that they posted already, they're just saying that people won't stand electricity outages or power outages. And then if businesses don't have power, then they can't produce goods, and then they lose profits. And so we're getting, this game is real. So we start off with different types of hydro. So we have wind, solar, geothermal, hydroelectric. We also have coal and gas. Nuclear power represents the awesome power of the atom, but it's expensive, although it delivers enough electricity. That's good. That makes sense. Cool. All of these are also upgradable. So like you build the base one and then you kind of upgrade it throughout. So for our water and sewage, okay, yeah, so if you don't have fresh water, everyone dies. Groundwater works a little bit differently in cities too. Oh, I see. Okay, so basically, similar to City Skylines 1, surface water, so like lakes, rivers, stuff like that, can be pumped. So you can have water pumping stations. Groundwater works a little bit differently though. So in Cities 1, you'd kind of just put a water tower wherever, and now you have unlimited water for the rest of time. In Cities 2, does not work like that. There are different groundwater deposits around the map. These reservoirs have a limited refresh rate and are very susceptible to ground pollution. So that one makes sense. I'm wondering how this refreshment rate is. Like, is it similar to like the oil and ore in Cities 1 where it goes super fast, or maybe there's going to be mods to fix that? But either way, I like having two clear different ways of getting water. I felt like in Cities 1, it wasn't really that well explained. You know, you kind of just put a water tower and you're good to go, or you pump water, right? And then obviously the DLC and stuff, but I like this. Okay, this is cool. So sewage works a little bit differently as well. You can either pump it right out into the water, which is awesome. You pump the poop into a little poop hole, or you can do a wastewater treatment plant, and then the water's purified. It's put back into the freshwater network, which is really cool. And then they take the waste out of that. So they take all of the poop and they put it into the garbage sites, which is, that makes sense. Okay, so next week is electricity and water. So they go deep into electricity and water, which is cool. It's cool. Very micromanagey, this game, but I'm here for it. I'm glad I'm starting this game at the beginning. You know, you start Cities 1 late and everyone already knows what they're doing. Like this game, there's going to be so much going on with it that if you start a couple years late, everyone is going to be so much more knowledgeable about the game than you. So I'm excited to play it from the beginning. Healthcare and death care. Okay, so healthcare is similar to Cities 1. You have medical clinics and hospitals that provide healthcare for people. Hospitals have ambulances that go pick people up, but you also now have healthcare services which provide the surrounding area with a passive health bonus. So if you live near, there's a health research institute right here, this like red looking building. If you live near that building, there's maybe like a radius of like, 40, 50 meters, whatever, and you just have a health bonus. So that's kind of nice. So you can just kind of maybe not like litter them around the city, but it's good to know. Oh, this is cool. Death care. So you have your cemeteries and your crematoriums, and they're transported by hearses. Citizens can die of old age if their health decreases too much, if they're involved in a traffic accident, or if they're inside of a building when it collapses. That's cool. More ways to die. A cemetery provides citizens with a final resting place and can improve their well-being too. So I imagine the cemetery can improve the well-being of the citizens that are around it. So this is, I guess, the picture of a cemetery. That's really cool. It looks beautiful with all the trees. The cemetery in Cities 1 was a little lackluster compared to this one. This one's gorgeous. Okay, so citizen health is affected by the resources the household uses and their consumption, as well as the availability of healthcare. Negative effects on citizen health are from pollution, illness, injuries, uncollected garbage. A sick citizen cannot contribute to their workplace and thus affects the company's efficiency. So it seems like in this game, once you start piling on like negative factors, it just piles on, right? Like if you have like an area of your city that is sick, say, or there's an area that's not having their garbage needs met, they're not able to go to work, those businesses shut down. Because those businesses shut down, your people from across the city who go there to buy their groceries now can't go there, so now they're it just seems like there's a lot of, you can really get piled down with all of the negative factors. That's kind of fun, it's a little bit of like it brings a little bit more risk to the game, which is nice, because that's kind of missing in Cities 1. Not when I play it. I bring the risk when I play it. Okay, garbage management. Higher level buildings generate less garbage, as do citizens with higher education level. That's good to know. Garbage is handled by building landfills and the incineration plant, pushing out a bunch of air pollution as well. So they should be built far away from residential areas and preferably downwind to avoid the air pollution from affecting the city. Okay, so right there, that's cool. Downwind. So we have wind now, a little bit more than just like, oh, I'm going to place a wind turbine here because you can get 7-8 megawatts per whatever. Now you'll actually have the wind direction, kind of like how the rivers flow and lakes flow, which is cool. So you have to put the incineration plant downwind or you will murder all of your Sims. But the incineration plant does turn waste into electricity. Very cool. The recycling center separates the usable parts from the garbage and turns them into resources that can then be used by manufacturing companies to produce goods and products. That is huge. That's insane. So now you don't just have garbage, you have garbage and recycling. If you don't have a recycling center, everything goes to the landfill. But if you have a recycling center, then the recycling center will take all of the garbage, separate it into things that can be manufactured, so it can go back into, I imagine, like the industrial zones, and then later sold into the commercial zones. And then they take the rest of the garbage and they send that to either the landfill or the incineration plant. That is really cool. So it seems like hopefully like recycling centers you can put a little bit closer to the residential zones. That way you have like a little bit faster access for garbage, and then the recycling center will send the garbage over to your incineration plant that will be outside of your city, and then that can burn the garbage and create power. Okay, so recycling centers and incineration plants process garbage faster than landfills. Landfills can take up precious land. That makes sense. There was part of the video you actually just create how big you want the landfill to be. So you can just keep growing it and growing it and growing it. You could have a garbage city. That's kind of fun. This is a real simulation. Wow. Okay. So these Sims are like people. This is crazy. Okay, so education and research. So you provide your citizens with education by building different types of school. Children will always go to elementary school, where teens and adults have the freedom to choose whether to go to school or switch to working. So teens can, keyword can, go to high school, while adults have the option to either go to college or one of the universities available in the game. Okay, so we have colleges and universities. Cool. When choosing between school and work, citizens calculate which is financially more beneficial to them, to start working now in a lower position and earning money, or studying for a higher possible position earning more. That's crazy. This is like real life. Oh my God. Is that what we live in? Okay, citizens now have 5 levels of education: uneducated, poorly educated, educated, well-educated, and highly educated. I imagine that these levels are no education, obviously, elementary school, high school, college, and then university. That's why I imagine. Sorry to all the college graduates out there. I went to film school, so I don't have any of those. So I'm wondering, can you go from educated to university? Like, do you have to go to college? Maybe I have these mixed up as well. Because it says here, every time a citizen graduates from a school, their education level increases by 1. They can also fail. Oh my God. And they can continue to study or get a job. I wonder if you have the ability to, like, tweak the school system, like, so that more people pass. And then if you're making a lot of people pass and it's too easy, does your city burn down because of that too? So many questions. Education levels are important when filling job positions in companies and city services, as most of them have a certain amount of job positions for the various education levels, like Cities 1. Okay, so if companies can't fill all open positions with the applicable employees, i.e. not enough workers with high enough education, the service's efficiency decreases and their production output is affected negatively. Higher level companies have more job positions for higher education levels compared to low level companies, and in general, higher education employees are more sought after than lower educated employees. Okay, cool. As a special effect, elementary schools give a well-being bonus for families with children living close to the school. This encourages the families to move into that area that have elementary schools and can to some extent be used to guide how a certain portion of the population behaves. Interesting. Okay, cool. So I wonder, in the beginning, like, you'll have a lot of, like, uneducated, but I'm wondering, like, can you just create, like, a super educated city where everyone is insanely educated and you don't have, because there's a lot of, like, oh, these are this is lower income housing, this is higher income housing, and all that kind of stuff. Is every city going to need all of that? Or can you just, like, create a city that only has low income? That seems like it's definitely possible, but can you create a city that has only high income? These are the questions that I ponder. Encourage families to move into an area, providing them with a local elementary school. Fire and rescue. Okay, having a firehouse or fire station in the city decreases fire hazards in the area surrounding the city service buildings. It is important to sort out traffic jams in case of emergency because the trucks need to get to the fires. That makes sense. Fire watchtowers. If you have fire watchtowers, you need a firefighting helicopter depot. That makes sense. Okay. Fire and rescue service also includes disaster prevention and response. Fire engines rush to rescue citizens trapped in collapsed buildings because they can die in there, while in the early disaster warning system detects natural disasters early and sends out notifications to citizens to take shelter. If the city has emergency shelters, citizens hurry there and wait out the disaster. Okay, so disasters obviously are in the game, but it seems like maybe a little bit more fleshed out now. That'll be fun and stressful. Okay, police stations, headquarters decrease crime in their neighborhood. Patrolling police cars also encourage citizens to behave well. The man is watching. They decrease crime probability along the roads they travel. Unless limited by selected districts, police cars cannot control or can patrol the entire city. Okay, so keep that in mind if you have a giant map with multiple little towns and cities in it, that you'll want to have districts that limit where the police cars can go. Or else you may have somebody in your city in your small town and vice versa, and then crime can back up in other parts of the city. Oh, this is funny. Okay, so police respond to the crimes and they capture criminals at the crime scene while the crime is in progress. I'm wondering, this makes it sound like maybe if they get there after the crime is finished, then do they still go after the criminal? Or is the criminal off the hook? Arrested criminals are put in jail, and then some of them are sentenced to serve prison time. So I'm wondering, is there a jury here, or is the cop the judge? Because I have some questions about the legality of this entire operation. Then the prisoners are transported to a prison or an outside connection to serve the sentence. After serving their time, criminal status is reset. They return to the city. Prisons function as a production facility, producing resources used by manufacturing companies in the city. Damn, how much are these prisoners getting paid? Probably nothing. Is there a prison economy? Put criminal citizens to work in a local prison while they serve their sentence. Damn. Each building has a crime probability. Crime probability also affects well-being, which in turn affects the chance of becoming criminals. Okay, so if your well-being is super low in an area, more criminals will come out of that area. Damn, dude, they really did not go light on this. So if your Sims grow up in a place with no electricity, no water, no sewage, no pollution, no garbage, and a lack of leisure, and they don't die, they are criminals. Administration includes services such as, so we have a welfare office, a city hall, and a central bank. Ooh. The welfare office helps people down on their luck and boost their well-being if their happiness is below half. That's fun. The city hall has citywide effects ranging from lowered loan interest rates and import costs to reduce crime rates and building leveling costs. That's kind of cool. The central bank also helps reduce loans and boost companies' profits by lowering import costs while increasing export profits. Okay, seems intense. I feel like a lot of these, the way that they explain them is it might sound confusing, but in the game, you will place the central bank and then all of a sudden you'll have more money kind of thing. Or you'll make more money from taxes or, whatever. The welfare office helps your citizens get back on their feet when life gets tough. That's so nice. Okay, transportation. So buses, taxis, trains, trams, subways, ships, and airplanes. In addition to the automatic cargo transportation by road via delivery trucks, cargo transportation for rail, water, and air makes a return, giving you more control than before. Each land type has its own depot. Okay, so water and air don't have depots, but they are connected to the outside connections. Airports are the only transportation building that can be upgraded to also include a cargo terminal, as other transportation types have a separate passenger and cargo stations and terminals. Okay, so for trains, you have your your cargo terminal and your passenger terminal. And then for airports, you can just upgrade your airport to include a cargo terminal, which makes sense. Parks and recreation, good show. They fill a different role in cities too, where they affect land value quite directly. Placing a lot of them in the city was beneficial as they saturated the area, greatly increasing the land value. However, in cities too, parks, plaza, tourist attractions, and landmarks, or any other service building don't directly increase land value. Instead, they answer to the citizens' various needs, and if their needs are met, citizens find the area where they live appealing, and this increases the land value as the citizens are willing to continue living there and pay higher rent. That makes sense. So you can't just spam parks to get high land value. Now the parks will fill a citizen's need and people give high land value, which makes more sense because that's how it happens in the real world. If you just have parks everywhere in a district, no one's going to live there because it's all parks. Okay. Parks and Rec offer places where people can spend their free time. They have leisure demands, which in turn positively affects their well-being. Leisure can be fulfilled by going shopping and commercial, entertainment, restaurants, city parks, plazas, sports venues, tourist attractions, landmarks. Weather and time of the year have an effect on citizens' choices to fulfill their leisure demands. Interesting. Warm and sunny weather encourages them to spend time outdoors in the parks, while rainy or cold weather makes them choose indoor activities such as shopping. Where are the ski hills? Parks and recreation buildings also have attractiveness value, which affects how attractive the city is for tourists by adding to the city attractiveness. That's fun. Tourists stay at hotels and make decisions about visiting city attractions based on their distance from the hotel and the location's attractiveness value. I wonder what the description of how we make decisions would be. It would probably be very similar to this. Tourists might choose a more attractive park or landmark further away if the net result is faster fulfilled leisure demand, regardless of the travel time and cost. So I'm wondering, maybe if their leisure is super low, will they go farther away to get it all up as opposed to going to multiple different parks to fill it? And do parks always add the same amount? Do they diminish? Do they go up? Do you need to upgrade them? Tourists are specifically interested in visiting the various tourist attractions and landmarks, not the Statue of Liberty. Communications. Yeah, there's internet now. Crazy. Okay, communications has the post service as well as telecom service, which provides citizens and companies with an internet connection. I wonder if they have their own cities game inside of our cities game. Post services fulfill citizens, companies, and service to send and receive mail. Okay, so there's a lot about this well-being boost in this blog post. So mail, citizens are able to send and receive mail. They get a well-being boost, which contributes to their happiness. While being unable to send postcards to their friend and families, love letters to their loved ones, and opinionated letters to the editor decreases their well-being. So if you can't send an opinionated letter to the editor of the local newspaper in City Skylines to Dollarton, they're going to be upset. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. I'm a little overwhelmed. Functioning post service with an increase in efficiency when their mail is collected and delivered. Makes sense. Post vans collect mail from mailboxes, send it out. They go to an outside connection or to the post sorting facility. The post sorting facility sorts the mail into local and long distance mail, which is then delivered back to the city and to outside connections respectively. It feels like these Sims are little people, and it's freaking me out a little bit. They have entire lives, whole lives. They make decisions. It's crazy. Telecommunications is about providing citizens and companies with high-speed internet connection. Each citizen, be it a resident of an apartment building, a worker in a company, or blah, 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 uses a small portion of the available network bandwidth, 1 gigabit per second, and each telecom building has a bandwidth capacity and range describing how many citizens it can service and how far its services reach. That's insane. Good telecommunication services coverage increase citizen well-being. There it is again, as it provides them with recreation, fulfilling their leisure demand. The amount of well-being a citizen gains from using the internet depends on the strength of the network signal, which is always strongest near the source of the signal and decreases as you get further away. Makes sense. Commercial companies benefit from telecommunications by increasing their sales as citizens are able to shop online, while industrial companies get better deals from resource providers as they're able to communicate better and have a wider reach. That's crazy. That's why Wall Street exists, so that the traders who trade on Wall Street, they're so close to the ISP or the New York Stock Exchange that they're able to trade faster. They have an advantage than somebody that's like a street away or even, a city away. So they're bringing that into the game. That's crazy. I'm just blown away. There's a lot going on and I'm excited. Landscaping has remained largely the same. Terraforming, you're able to adjust the terrain to suit your city building needs by using the familiar tools. Shift, level, soften, slope. You can plant trees, which have a life cycle where they grow older and bigger as time goes on. Placing new trees on the map using the tools and landscaping vegetation menu plants tree saplings that eventually grow into mature trees. Similarly, if a forest fire destroys a part of the forest, it will take time for the new trees to grow in place of the old burned trees, as opposed to Cities 1 where the leaves would just burn off and then they'd be fine. Pathways are another familiar feature in the landscaping menu, enabling you to create pavement paths for pedestrians, including various styles of pedestrian bridges. I love the pavement. It looks clean. It's not like bloppy. I like that a lot. There's new pedestrian bridges. I like this bridge. That looks really cool. Yep. So walking is free. So they now have more money to spend elsewhere. They don't have to drive around in their private cars. Yeah. So if you can have a lot of pathways that connect up through your city, then people will be happy, basically. Service upgrades. A new feature in Cities 2 is the City Service Upgrade System. In the previous game, city services were one and done buildings. You placed the building, and if the city needed more of the service type, you placed another building of the same type. In Cities 2, each city service building, with a few exceptions, is upgradable, extending its operations to service more citizens and answer different needs of the citizens. That's really cool. So now you don't have to have 8 different firehouses that look the exact same throughout your entire city. Instead, you can grow your main firehouse into a mega firehouse. That's kind of fun. I like that. So for example, you can place an ambulance depot or an extension wing to a medical clinic to add more ambulances in patient capacity. Similarly, placing an extension wing to an elementary school increases its student capacity, while placing a children's clinic or playground improves student health and well-being. There it is again, well-being. Respectively, adding both new effects to the elementary school. A power plant can have additional turbines built. It can decrease the amount of air pollution, additional storage space for storing fuel. That's really big as well. If you are like someone I know and you have poor traffic management, you could have a large fuel storage, and then you're not as worried about constant influx of fuel. Upgrading costs money, and in most cases the upgrades also add to the building's upkeep costs. That makes sense. It's not always beneficial to build all upgrades for a building, but instead to consider the needs of the city and its citizens. Is the exhaust filter necessary for that power plant, which is already downwind from the city, and the air pollution spreads away from the residential areas? Maybe not. Interesting. I like that. See, again, they talk about downwind from the city. But if the power plant is located near the city center and was built in the early days of the city, the exhaust filter might be exactly what the plant needs. Oh, if the school is already full of students, but more eligible students are in the city, is it better to upgrade the school with additional student capacity or build an entirely new school in another part of the city? This depends on where the students are located, as providing them with nearby facilities cuts travel time and contributes less to traffic congestion. Cool. Interesting. I like that. So you have a choice. You can either grow your schools or your power plants or your hospitals or whatever, or you can add new ones in different places. And that's why when they first mentioned some of like the new things about cities too, they mentioned that there was a lot more in the info graph thing on the left hand side of the screen. So that makes sense. So now you'll be looking at different areas in your city, like, oh, this one is very well utilized. This area over here needs whatever. If I grow this school, does it even affect this other area? Do I just put another school there? Very, very cool. Service upgrades are divided into 3 categories: operational, extensions, and sub-buildings. Interesting. Operational upgrades add functional and statistical changes to the buildings without changing its looks. These can be bandwidth increases for the radio mast, exhaust filters installed in the coal power plant, or a dispatch center built inside the taxi depot. Okay, that makes sense. So you're upgrading the operational capability of any building. Extensions are visible upgrades connected directly to the main building. Okay, so operational is not visible then, which is good to know. So extensions are visible and they're connected directly to the main building, usually increasing the building's capacity for vehicles, output, range, or the number of citizens being serviced. These include, among other things, extension wings for medical facilities and schools providing more patient and student capacity, garages for various services increasing the size of their service vehicle fleet, and additional turbines for power plants increasing the electricity output and fuel consumptions. Extensions also have a fixed position on the building lot and fit inside the existing lot size. That is good to know. So you can keep on adding, if you place down a school and then you put something right beside the school, you can keep building extensions because it will just fit inside that first area. Sub-buildings are going to be a little bit different. These are obviously also visible upgrades, but they are separate buildings attached to the service building's existing lot. So if you look, this looks like this is a fire station. This is a sub building right here. So it's growing. The amount of area that this fire station holds or covers is growing with the sub-buildings, whereas it won't with the extensions. They can be fuel storage, new functionality, playgrounds, children's clinic, and an elementary school. Sub-buildings naturally require additional space. Makes sense. So it's a consideration, the placement of the service building, to make sure that there's enough free space around them for those potential sub-buildings added to the future. Service coverage. There's a lot here. Oh my God. Okay, so services now have passive coverage and simulated effect. So that makes sense because they mentioned that the Health Research Institute has a passive effect on health, and then the hospital will have a simulated effect on health. That makes sense. So if you're sick, you can go to a hospital, but if you live in an area with a health research, you're more likely to be healthy, is I guess how it works. So the passive effect is to the local area, and the simulated effect can reach farther into the city. Okay, so as an example, managing the city's crime rate is not about placing a police station on every street corner. Instead, the police station's presence decreases the accumulation of crime in its neighborhood as its passive coverage effect, while the patrolling police vehicles extend that reach to all over the city as a simulated effect. That makes sense. I live near a police station where I live in Toronto. There's not a lot of crime in here because you know that there's 1,000 cops all over the place, right? Which is good, right? It's a safe place to live. It's a good time. But a little bit farther away, more crime because there's not 1,000 police cars around, but those cars will go around the city to stop criminals. That's really cool. Passive service coverage effect. Many of the city services have a passive effect that spreads to their surrounding along roads. Services with passive effects include healthcare facilities, educational elementary schools, well-being bonus, well-being, you see it again, and it's right here, but we're not there yet. Fire department facilities, decreases fire hazard. Police department facilities, decreases crime. Parks and recreation buildings, well-being. Welfare offices, well-being bonus for citizens whose happiness is low. So that's cool. So if you have a really low well-being and you can't get it up, that welfare office is going to be your saving grace. I wonder how much this costs, you know? The strength of the passive effect depends on three factors: range, capacity, and magnitude. Range is the maximum distance in meters along roads where the service building still provides its passive service coverage effect. That makes sense. Capacity is how much of it goes on. Okay. So if a fire department, for say, is in a low density housing, that reach will be far. But if the area is densely populated with medium or high density housing, the range can be quite short as it is used up faster. That makes sense. Magnitude is the maximum effect gained from the passive service coverage. So magnitude is the maximum effect. It is at full effect within most of its range, but the effect fades out quickly at the edge. This area is where, as an example, your citizens will only have a few bars in their cell phones and their internet may be unreliable, making some overlap of passive service coverage. So it sounds like internet is like 5G in that you need to be really close to it. You know, it's not like 4G or 3G where you can put one tower and it services a giant, basically the whole county. It sounds like you will need multiple cell towers, for example. Just from this, right? Like, yeah. So the service efficiency words. Okay, so buildings, businesses, city services, they have an efficiency value. And how high this efficiency value is obviously how efficient the building is, which makes sense, right? The more efficient, the more goods that it produces, the less efficient, the less goods that it produces, the less people that it can help, and so on and so forth. So roads, the number of roads available, number of available road maintenance vehicles, the electricity output, the water sewage, the water level, healthcare and death care, treatment bonuses, processing speed of the deceased, I can't speak. Number of available ambulances and hearses, garbage management, education, graduation bonus, interesting, fire and rescue, number of available fire engines, police and administration, number of police cars, transportation, number of transportation vehicles, parks and rec, attractiveness value, number of available park maintenance vehicles, communication, number of available post vehicles, network range, and capacity. So calculating the efficiency. Many factors contribute to the building's efficiency. Some are essential for the buildings to even work, while others are important but lacking. Some doesn't entirely halt the building's functionality. Water and electricity are the basic needs for a building to function. That makes sense. If you don't have water and electricity, building stops working. Yeah, lacking either of them. Yeah. Employees are an important factor when it comes to building. Happy, healthy, and have the right education level ensures that the buildings function as smoothly as possible. That's really interesting. So if your employees are unhappy, they won't be as efficient. Yeah. Unhappy employees incur a penalty. If employees become sick, they can't contribute to their workplace's efficiency, which incurs a penalty. Cool. And the inability to find employees who are suitably educated will also have a negative impact on the building's efficiency. As a reminder, highly educated employees are able to fill job positions requiring lower education levels, but it is impossible for a lower education employee to fill the higher education level. Oh, that's cool. That makes sense. So if you have a university degree, you can work as a corner store clerk, but not vice versa, which makes sense. So are we going to have recessions? Some service buildings, such as power plants, use fuel or other resources to function. Okay, so it seems like the efficiency will be the key determiner of everything that the building produces. So if the power plant doesn't have access to fuel, the efficiency decreases. So it's not, the efficiency is a direct correlation of what the building or the service outputs, which makes sense. During night, the solar power plant does not produce electricity, but instead relies on built-in batteries to keep the lights on in the city. So can you upgrade the batteries? Whoa, medical facilities can run out of pharmaceuticals while treating patients. If the building runs out of this resource, its efficiency decreases, and as a result, the treatment bonus added to the citizen's recovery decreases. So if you can't get pharmaceuticals to the medical facility, people will start dying. So now your industry, if you don't have enough industry or your traffic is bad or whatever, then the medical facilities won't get their resources and people will die. See, it's just adding negatives. It's cool. It's cool. A city service budget can be used to affect the efficiency of all buildings within a service category. Perhaps your city is still small and it doesn't require the full force of the service to function, in which case lowering the budget can be useful as it lowers the efficiency, decreases the upkeep cost, and cuts down on the service's vehicles use or other functionality. Okay. Service fees. Okay, so here's the economy panel, which is fun. I like that you can see how much things cost now as well, like directly. Instead of just percentages, you have the percentages here, you have the service fee, and then you have the budget. I like that. Oh, I see. So now you have the budget and you have a service fee. So the budget is what the city contributes to the service. So roads, for example, roads have say you contribute everything, you contribute 100% to the roads, but now you can also charge citizens to use certain things. So like healthcare, for example, you can have a budget and then you can also charge citizens for it. If you charge the citizens too much, the efficiency goes down and people won't use it. If you charge too little, then I don't know, then you need to make up for it as the city planner or city manager. That's kind of cool. You can encourage citizens to conserve electricity, decreasing demand in the city. Very cool. Garbage fees are paid when garbage trucks collect garbage. Imagine having to pay the garbage man when he picks up your garbage. Citizens pay for education. You can set up roadside parking fees. That is very, very cool. And that makes sense. You can use parking fees. I mean, they said this in one of their other blog posts, but you can use parking fees to encourage your Sims to walk, take transit, take the train, whatever. And it can be specific to districts. Super cool. Because that's how it works, right? If you go in real life, if you go to a residential area, you can park on the street, no problem. But if you go to a busy city and you go downtown to the financial district, you can't just park on the street. You have to pay a lot for that parking. The most difficult thing is you are going to be the one that has to manage all of this, but that's fun. Yeah. So each passenger's transportation line's ticket fee can be adjusted individually, which can encourage or discourage citizens to use certain methods of transportation as the cost is considered when they make pathfinding decisions. Service trade. When your city is just starting out and you can't afford a service, you can benefit from service trade. Services can be imported from or exported to neighboring cities through outside connections and apply to most services. That is interesting. So if you just start a city, you can just import your police or your fire or your hospital. That's really cool. But obviously, as your city grows, you need to have your own hospital because then people will just die. Electricity, water, and sewage can all be imported and exported. So I'm wondering, is it worth it to just create a bunch of electricity and export it, or water and sewage? And you can just export or import, like, could you import sewage and could you make money off of that is my question. Or vice versa, could you export electricity and water and make money off that? I guess we'll probably find out in this paragraph that I'm currently reading. You can find power lines running through the map, making it possible to connect your neighbors when you're first starting out. Likewise, sewage can be sent to and from outside connections via pipes built to the edge of the city. To import or export both water and sewage, you will need to grow your city enough to reach the edges of the map where you can create pipe outside connections. Excess output is always sold, if possible, while keeping enough for the city's own needs. And if the usage increases, less is sold to outside connections. That makes sense. Medical facilities, citizens travel to outside connections to get treated. Ambulances can be sent from outside connections. I wonder if you can have your outside connection be another one of your cities. Like, can you manage multiple cities at the same time? That could be kind of cool. Hearses will also arrive from outside connections. Police and fire can be imported, although the response times are as slow as they arrive at crime scenes and emergencies from outside connections. Also, imported services lack the passive service coverage effects. That makes sense. Citizens wanting to go to college or university may travel to outside connections. However, traveling outside of the city for education may also encourage them to actually move out of the city for good. That's crazy, dude. You can also export education and attract students from outside connections. Is there like an online portion of the game? It seems like you could have like a competition who can steal more citizens from each other's cities. There could be like a fun mini game online. I don't know. Districts give you more in-depth information information about the populace residing there. Policies can obviously be applied to individual districts, their average wealth level, education, hovering the happiness for the district will show you all the benefits and drawbacks. So it seems like having districts will actually be very much more important for seeing who's happy, what parts of your city need work. It is a big thing, which is really cool because there's so much to micromanage here. It will be nice to know like, oh, is this area good? Is this area good? Is this area good? And then you can kind of work that way. So it'll be the troubleshooting when your city starts to burn down. Hopefully will be a lot easier with this. Creating a district with the district tool. So it looks like you pull it out as opposed to draw it in. I like drawing it in. Yeah, corner nodes. And once you close the area, the district is created. This method is faster, more precise than in the game's predecessor. That's fair. And you can also grow it by adding nodes to the edges. So city services can now be assigned to those districts. I'm wondering if you can have multiple districts in a large district, right? Like, can I have two major metropolis cities on the same map and each of those are its own district, so its own city, while having sub-districts inside? That's what I want to know. Services that have not been assigned to any district service the entire city. Important to note that a service building is assigned to multiple districts. Its passive service coverage effects still only apply its own neighborhood. Districts policies bring more city planning control over specific districts. For example, you can limit heavy traffic in a district to decrease traffic-based noise and air pollution, which in turn increases citizens' well-being and health. There it is again, well-being. You can install speed bumps, decreasing noise pollution and the likelihood of traffic accidents. That's cool. So in residential areas, you put some speed bumps down near schools so the kids don't die. Because now death is everywhere. Roadside parking fee, that makes sense. City policies are different from district policies and have citywide effects, such as removing the speed limits from highways or installing air filters or manufacturing companies in industrial zones to limit air pollution. Pre-release programs, that's for prisons, interesting. Highways with no speed limits. Damn, you can build the Autobahn, that's so cool. City Skylines 2 includes 7 district policies and 5 city policies, providing different ways to customize your city. Interesting. I wonder if as DLCs are introduced, we'll have more of those policies. That should be really cool. Awesome. And that is all for the dev diary. This was an intense dev diary, guys. If you made it this far and you liked the video, like the video. If you love the video and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe down below. And let me know in the comments section if you're excited for all this micromanagey stuff that we got going on. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.